Okay, so let's just state the obvious. AI is the big disruption of our time, right? It's changing everything and fast. But, and this is a huge but, there's a massive problem we have to talk about. The very foundation we're building all this on, it's got some serious cracks.
And this right here, this gets to the very heart of the problem. You see, the AI we're building is learning from us, but it's learning from a really skewed, totally incomplete picture of who us is. It's kind of like we're trying to teach a super genius about the entire world, but we're only giving them like half the books in the library. This isn't just some small oversight, folks. It's a massive blind spot, and the consequences are absolutely huge.
So what makes this revolution so different from the ones we've seen before? Well, think about it. The Industrial Revolution was all about the physical world. It changed how we make stuff. But this AI revolution, it's cognitive. It's happening inside our minds, and it's totally reshaping how we create, how we share, and maybe even how we define what knowledge is in the first place.
All right, let's dive into this. What is this giant blind spot I'm talking about? Well, you can think of it as a crisis of omission. We're building arguably the most powerful technology of our lifetimes, and we're doing it while leaving massive parts of humanity completely out of the conversation.
And when you dig in, the sources we're pulling from today really point to two huge groups being left out: women and the incredibly diverse populations of the global South. Now let's be super clear. This is not about ticking some demographic boxes for the sake of it. No. Leaving these voices out actively and dangerously skews how AI sees the world and how it's going to shape our reality.
Okay, so let's tackle that first one, the gendered algorithm. The scholar Sophia Umoja Noble puts it so powerfully. She says, look, this is not just some random technical glitch we can patch later. When women are shut out of the process of building AI, it becomes a fundamental, systemic safety issue. We are literally programming our old, historical biases directly into the future. We're taking the social divides we already have and pouring concrete on them.
And this gives us such a perfect metaphor for what's happening. The brilliant AI researcher Timnit Gebru calls these systems stochastic parrots. Think about it, they're not thinking, they're just really, really good at mimicking and repeating the patterns they see in their training data. So what happens when that data is soaked in a narrow, patriarchal Western point of view? Well, the AI just parrots it right back to us, amplifying all those harmful ideas without having a clue what any of it actually means.
So that's one part of the problem. Now let's pivot to that second huge blind spot. The scholar Paula Ricarte has given it a really powerful and pretty provocative name: data colonialism. And what she's arguing is that we're basically seeing a new version of a very old, very ugly problem, but this time it's all about data.
So what does that actually mean? Here's the basic idea. Raw data is being mined from the global South, kind of like a natural resource. But all the value, all the tech, all the money is being created and kept in the global North. It's not a partnership, not by a long shot. It's purely extractive, and it ends up imposing one way of seeing the world onto everybody else.
And you have to understand, the danger here is just immense. When we just ignore these voices, it's not just about losing their perspective. We lose access to entire strategies for resilience, for survival. I'm talking about things like rich, indigenous knowledge systems, community-first models, all of it. So instead of technology being a tool for liberation, it becomes a tool for control.
Okay, so what happens next? What are the real-world consequences when you try to build a global brain on such a shaky, biased foundation? Well, the whole system becomes incredibly fragile, and that fragility leads to a very messy and very real problem.
Yeah, people have started calling this problem AI slop, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's this absolute tidal wave of low-quality, biased, or sometimes just flat-out made-up content that these narrow AIs are churning out. It's literally polluting our entire information ecosystem, making it harder and harder for any of us to figure out what's real and what's not.
This fragility really creates danger on three main fronts. First up, you've got economic risk. If your AI is only trained on what researchers call weirds data, that's Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic, it's going to completely misunderstand how the rest of the world works. Second, there's social risk. These systems just end up amplifying the injustices that are already there. And finally, and this one might be the scariest, is epistemic risk. That's a fancy way of saying it's a threat to our very ability to agree on what's true.
And Ruha Benjamin just nails the severity of this risk with this really chilling concept, the new Jim code. The idea is that technology, with its shiny veneer of objectivity and neutrality, can actually become a new, high-tech way to enforce old racist systems of oppression. It hides the bias behind a curtain of code.
Okay, I know, this all sounds incredibly dire. And it is. But here's the good news. This is not a done deal. It's not our inevitable future. The sources we're looking at also point toward a solution, a real path forward to a more resilient and even regenerative future for AI.
At the absolute core of the solution is a fundamental shift in how we think about this stuff. We have got to stop designing for people, which is almost always a top-down, extractive process. Instead, we have to start designing with people in a truly collaborative way.
The whole philosophy behind this shift has this beautiful name, the pluriverse. It's an idea that comes mainly from scholars in the Global South, and it's just so powerful. The goal isn't to find one single universal truth or way of knowing. The goal is to create a world where many, many different worlds and knowledge systems can all fit, all coexist.
So that's the big idea, the philosophy. But what does it look like on the ground? What's the actual blueprint? How do we get our hands dirty and start building this wiser, more inclusive AI?
It all comes down to three core principles. First, epistemic pluralism. That just means we value all ways of knowing, not just the ones that come out of the West. Second, design justice. This means we start the design process by focusing on the people who are most often pushed to the margins. And third, Ubuntu ethics, which completely changes the goal. Instead of just optimizing for efficiency, we prioritize our relationships and well-being, grounded in that incredible idea that I am because we are.
And this right here, this quote, just perfectly sums up the power of design justice. It's based on the work of Sasha Costanza-Chalk, and you can think of it as the ultimate stress test for any new tech. If you can build an AI system that genuinely works for a woman in the rural Global South, guess what? It's probably going to work for a CEO in Silicon Valley. But it absolutely, 100%, does not work the other way around.
And this table really breaks down what this looks like in the real world, comparing the old way with the new. So instead of ideas coming just from Silicon Valley, problems are defined by the community. Instead of just scraping the web for data, you create community-led data trusts. The whole motto of development changes from move fast and break things to move thoughtfully and heal things. And finally, you stop rolling things out in a one-size-fits-all way and start adapting to local contexts.
So let's just wrap this part up and be crystal clear. Bringing these hidden voices into the room isn't about being nice. It's not charity. It's a strategic necessity. Women and the people of the Global South are not just supposed to be the beneficiaries of a better AI. They are the necessary architects of any AI that hopes to be truly resilient, truly robust, and truly intelligent.
And that really brings us to the final choice, doesn't it? Look, we're going to build smart AI. That train has already left the station. But whether we build wise AI, something that actually reflects the full, incredible spectrum of human experience and genuinely helps us all, well, that's not inevitable. That is a choice, and it's a choice we have to make on purpose and all together.